Hello, checking my mic. My mic is working. Yay, it's working today. I'm happy about that. Hopefully the sound is okay as well. I have been having problems with the recording sound, and I'm guessing the streaming sound as well being awful. I couldn't figure out why on my end, and I had this thought, and both times I had the thought, I said to myself, no, that's really, really, really unlikely. And today, just out of a whim, because it was very short on time, and I thought, well, let's do the quickest potential fix. And yeah, that's what it was. I was double processing my audio. I had the plugins running both on Cantabile and on OBS, and that's not a good idea. So hopefully it's fixed now. Please let me know what you think of the audio situation as it is on my mic. Also, the volume of my music compared to my mic levels. Tell me about that as well, because with me breaking my stream setup and having to rebuild it, there's no good, like I don't have written down anywhere exactly what levels the soft music was supposed to be at. So hi, I'm Morgan. My pronouns are they and them, and this is my channel, Tempest Games, where I do world building and ttrpg and board game design content. And today I am massively unprepared, so we're gonna do some like weird things today, and I mean, we're definitely gonna get back to the life in the world stuff, but this is probably gonna be like my most random variety of variety streams today, which is cool because I'm just feeling a bit down. Stuff. So we're just gonna chill today. I think we're definitely not gonna be manic like I was last week. That was wow. I don't usually have that kind of energy. Yeah. Well, I want to show you guys this. So we're going to switch right over. I'm going to embarrass Rick a little bit. And I'm going to look at his blog post. I haven't actually read it yet, so I'm going to read it with you. Unless he objects. If he objects, I will stop. If he can't take the heat. So let's see, cities and cities. If you think about it, most cities are pretty samey. A big river running through the middle, rich and poor, noise, homelessness, bustle and shops, buses and suburbs, and so on. The customs, culture, and weather might change, but city life is city life pretty much wherever you go. Anyway, here are some observations about writing and playing fantasy cities. How do you do it? How do you make it all up? I live in the... That's questionable, Rick, right? That's super questionable, Rick. Sorry, Chicago's the greatest city in the world. Just full stop. So I'm going to tell you you're wrong. And you should stop. Yeah. Get everyone all hyped up. Get the blood flowing right away. But when I try to sum up London, I struggle. I could say London is a grey, wet city, which would be true, yes. It's also true that London is a bright green city filled with parks. Sure, if you're in the right part of the city, yeah, absolutely. I could also say London is a city with a long and rich history. It's also true that London is building over its past as fast as it can. See, we're going to get a little controversial here. This is a thing that Britons really like to say about themselves and their places. But I think if you compare London with many cities around the world, say for instance Istanbul or Jerusalem. London is a tiny wee baby compared to those cities. But I think Britons find it flattering to look further westward of themselves when saying things like this. So yes, compared to North and South America, many parts of North and South America, South America does still have some cities that have an even longer history. But just that whole concept of long history of a place, I find really controversial, but we won't get too much into it. But London is definitely, it's solidly in the middle there, I think. Hi Torch, hi Ben. How you doing? Let's see, we're reading Rick's blog post at the moment. So, let's keep going. Now that I've tried to pick a fight. London is building over its past as fast as it can. It's a city of contrasts, I guess. The point is cities aren't one thing. They're too big and complex to sum up. We experience parts. Sometimes these parts overlap. Sometimes they contradict. Sometimes they conflict. Some are introverted. Some expansive. And some just never meet. You can't experience an entire city. Ergo, you can't capture its entirety in fiction. Glim cities. Are you in Bejel or Ulcoma? Neither. I'm in Breach. The City and City by China Mieville. Okay. That's Rick is very well read. And I genuinely suggest that you genuinely recommend his recommendations, whatever they are. Because he's got some good ones. They might not all be to your taste, but they're quality. Oh, it crashed as soon as I said hi? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not losing any frames or anything. Everything looks really stable on my end. I had to quit my YouTube upload because it was making things unstable. Aw. Let me know if you keep having problems or if anyone else does. I wish it was on my end because then I could fix it. Oh. Well, there you go. All right. Let's see. Glimpse cities. First observation, don't detail every part of a city. Define what the... Ooh, we got a typo. Define what your characters need. Sketch the rest. Your characters might blunder through the slums, might be drawn into the machinations of the nobility. So you focus on the shanty town known as the Crows and the corrupt scions of House Barrosa. You might only mention the industrious craftsmen who dwell beyond Cemetery Hill, or outline the factious trade guilds. Regardless, game masters are well advised against over-preparation. Minimal preparation also conveys the vastness and complexity of the city. There are parts the characters might never see, the mention of which might daunt them, cunningly drawing your players in. I mean, this is great advice. I think, however, there's different definitions of over preparation depending on what kind of game you're trying to run. If you're in a really sandboxy game, over preparation would be a lot bigger of a situation than if you're in a more limited game or a more railroaded game or a short game, or a game like Rick likes to run, which is sort of in between a railroad and a sandbox game, where technically you have all of the world to work with, but What you do is narratively limited by the missions that are available to you. You can always go outside of those missions, but there's definitely some in-world consequences to doing stuff like that. Like, for instance, just being broke and not moving the story forward, or having the people you work for come after you, which could, be interesting if anyone was brave enough to try and break Rick's game like that. Because you do sign on to the mission-based aspect of his games when you start them. So if you tried to break them, it'd be a bit like breaking a contract with Rick. And the other players as well. So, but yeah, no, how can you argue with the idea of trying to avoid over preparation? Absolutely. Don't do it. Do your best. Unless you're like me and you just get carried away because you love thinking about these things and you have a nonstop imagination. Exactly. You could break them, but he'd need time to re-prep. If you really massively braked his game, he'd have to end the session and, try to come up with something else. He's not stopping you, but really put him in an imposition. Dragons be here. Manifold cities. I've got another lovely quote, this one by Neil Gaiman. He had noticed that events were cowards. They didn't occur singly, but instead they would run in packs and leap out at him all at once. Right. Second observation, capture the city's diversity, not just diversity of peoples, but unexpected glimpses of its parts, cultures, hidden places. Just when your characters think they know the city, something unanticipated should intrude. In RPGs, this can be handled using good old-fashioned random encounter tables. Instead of monsters, they encourage strange travelers, parade strategies, forgotten alleyways, and NPCs preoccupied with their own concerns. Not only do you want the city to have depth and feel alive, the characters should also have a sense that they're not the center of things. The city revolves regardless, even in the middle of whatever crisis they're embroiled in. Yes, 100 times yes. I don't just think that this is a city thing. I think this should be a world thing as well. But I think Rick makes a really good point here that cities in particular, especially when you're trying to capture that cityness of a city, it needs to feel alive and constantly, and it needs to feel almost sort of overwhelmingly so. Yeah. All right. Labyrinthine cities. Another China Melville quote. Perdido Street Station. I will follow the tram lines. I will stalk in their shadows as they pass by over houses and towers and barracks and offices and prisons of the city. I will track them from the arches that anchor them to the earth. I must find my way in. I always imagined London as a great tower. Each day I wake up in the suburbs, the ground floor of the analogy, and make the difficult ascent to the town proper, the penthouse, where all the interesting stuff is. It's a climb. You must negotiate many steps, avoid hazards and delays. That is to say, there is a center, sometimes more than one, with all the stuff, and dense areas between that must be navigated. See, I just need to stop and say I love the romanticism you have about this. I think that's brilliant. Even if I disagree that London is a place that anyone wants to be. I think this attitude towards a city is important. And I would venture to say, even while you're world building, if you can't find a way to love the city that you're world building, then why are you bothering? Yeah. Okay. In this way, a city very much resembles a dungeon. It has prices, it has dangers, its helpers and its puzzles. Its streets and rivers are corridors, its buildings and districts are rooms. Of course, it is also unlike a dungeon. The stakes are lower, it's safer, or at least safer than a monster-filled crypt. Water and food are widely available, etc. Yeah, okay. Interesting. This is a blog post by Rick. He posted this, was it yesterday? Just talking about cities. Yeah, okay. Oh. I think this is maybe one of those like sliding scale things. So in a city like London, there's, I mean, definitely a really solid like feel of a labyrinth, about moving through and learning things and being tested along the way. Quite possibly, it's not specifically about the age, the like isolated age of a city so much as the year in which it begun. So when I think of particularly labyrinthine cities, I think of, say, Istanbul. So the older the city, the more likely to me, Jerusalem as well, it's going to feel particularly labyrinthine. I don't know, because there's an element in that concept of the labyrinth is also very not Constantinople, not anymore anyway. I don't know about those cities and as far as their mix of flavors, but in the concept of like a labyrinth, part of that concept is that each little bit has its own separate character, its own thing that it's trying to teach you, its own story to tell. And certainly I know that London definitely has that. But of course, London is the oldest city that I've ever been in. I mean, it could very much be the case that, that is the same everywhere you go. 'Cause Chicago, and I love Chicago, and it has its character, but it doesn't feel labyrinthine to me. Partially because it was built in the age of city planning, in which more modern concepts were accounted for, were available to account for. And so it doesn't ever feel like you're lost in Chicago, if that makes sense. You just need to sort of grasp the general concept of the grid, and you're never really lost. And I think the same could be said about New York City. Although I have honestly never been to New York City. It never really appealed to me. I'm kind of more of just like an isolated country person who likes to be close enough to a city to, take a quick trip or socialize with some friends every once in a while. But I'm not I'd never live in London or New York City. I have lived in Chicago. I have lived in Bristol. Yeah, I bet it could be really interesting. New York is very much the place that it has much more limited expansion ability. So New York has built up, whereas London has very much sort of a tiny bit up and then out, and then like a tiny bit up and then out, and sort of filling in the gaps between what used to be little villages and towns and is now just a part of Greater London. I need to turn my volume down, or you're just gonna get all of my notifications. I always forget to do that. Nobody needs to hear my phone go off. Okay, all better. Yeah. And I think that's just a case of the fact that London is sort of a very flat area. And there are no political boundaries that prevent you from moving outward. Whereas New York City is really close to New Jersey, and it's also really close to Connecticut, I think. I get really confused about those little itty bitty states all around there. There's also, islands and things, a lot of water preventing expansion. And I wonder if Rick is going to get to this. No. I would probably have added in a section here of what is unique about your city. I think every city has something that is particularly unique about it. So Chicago, for instance, some things that are unique about Chicago is that it is in many ways at the time of its building. Well, first you've got the big fire. So the Chicago fire that happened in the 20s burned down most of the lakeside, and everything had to be rebuilt. So most of what you see is really new. And what's interesting about what was really new is that it was kind of built as like a carbon copy of Dublin. If you've ever been to both Chicago and Dublin, it's a bit creepy how alike they are. I felt instantly at home when I was in Dublin. I was like, wow, this is weird. Even down to the river running through the city and everything, it was just shocking. What else is unique about Chicago? Music. There's constant, and I suppose this is a lot like Dublin as well. Maybe I'm disproving my point a little bit. But Chicago is always going to have blues or jazz playing somewhere in the background. Chicago has 2 baseball teams and everyone picks a side. And you're always on the wrong side. Chicago was really bad for what would you call it? Racial segregation. Although I think you could generalize that more to poverty segregation, but it's clearly the system has become a thing that oppresses Black people in the city. And it's super disturbing. And something that I think is really glossed over about the city. So, and let's talk about London a little bit. What's unique about London? Well, let's see. There's the fact that London really became a city when it was a part of the Roman Empire. And that's when it became a thing that could then continue and last, as opposed to being just another, what would you call it? Iron Age settlement. It was a bigger settlement, I suppose, which is why the Romans, and correct me if my history is wrong, because obviously on the other side of the pond, we didn't go through this in quite as much detail as I'm sure you did. So London's early influences are very Roman. There's the fact that it built up, like I was saying earlier, out of smaller towns and villages that had space between them. And because it's so flat and they were able to spread so much, the size of London started from just building up those spaces in between things. What's unique about Jerusalem? 3 religions constantly at battle with each other, politically and religiously. That's a huge thing about Jerusalem. Yeah, you're right. It probably is still doing that today. When things get too old and broken down and aren't listed, they get torn down and then something bigger gets built on top of them. Yeah, absolutely. What's unique about Istanbul? I would say Istanbul is like the one city of a kind. It's one of a kind. It's its own thing. It's very different. Of course, I'm not really familiar with a lot of, I would say potentially a lot of Middle Eastern cities might have, you know, things in common with Istanbul. Istanbul still has a lot of respect for its history, which I think that you can't say the same about in Middle Eastern cities, in every Middle Eastern city. It's a city that I'm racking my brain. I watched this Turkish show once that was really interesting called The Protector. It's on Netflix, and it's based in Istanbul. And it's kind of it's like kind of a fantasy romance story about both Istanbul and its history. Still has the original Grand Bazaar. Oh, that would, yeah, I'd believe that. It's got that really, really shocking mix of extreme poverty and extreme wealth. Which I think is something you find a lot in Middle Eastern cities. And I'm comparing it to the Middle East a lot, but I understand that Turkey is kind of somewhere between Mediterranean and Middle Eastern. It is both very Catholic and very Muslim. And in that sense, it's quite unique. One thing I would say that's unique about Istanbul is that people's perspective on it is rarely true, is rarely accurate. So, like, I think the further west you get from Istanbul, you tend to think of it as an almost third world kind of place, or like second world. Like, you expect there to be a lot of issues still with technology, and not everyone's quite caught up. And maybe there are parts of Istanbul where that's true, but it's not universal, I'm sure. You know, you think of it as I think most people I knew growing up in the States would have assumed it was all Muslim. And I didn't find out until I was in my late 20s that in fact it's all also very heavily Catholic. That's very interesting. Yeah, or maybe that's more of a larger world building issue, that like the further you get away from a place and from a place's culture, the less accurate your idea of what it's going to be is. Which, is maybe an interesting note for my own world building. Let's switch over to this really quick, and we're going to go into theory section. I'm going to make a new page for Elven continent. Okay. And we're going to say Eastern Roman Empire. Maybe? Wasn't it also like the capital of what is it, like the Persian Empire? Or the Ottoman Empire? It's the Ottoman, isn't it? I get really confused about the empires in that area of the world. And also the ones sort of like in Northern Europe and Russia. So we're saying, given that this continent is so far from where we are, our point of view, and physically, We are very likely to have inaccurate ideas of what it's like. I think this could be important. Because I'm very particular about point of view in my setting. Because everything is very human centric. And I think that's important to how I world build. But I think this could be useful in setting the seeds for people eventually getting to the Elven continent. They are barred currently by the level of, by not having access to magics that would transport them there, and also not having access to seafaring technology that would, physically transport them there. So nobody's going to be going to the Elven continent anytime soon. But what I can do is I can drop in little tidbits and pieces and hints, and even some conflicting stories about what it's like. It's mostly planar magics that are limited. Yeah, anything planar. No, not levels. Potentially levels, I suppose, but like the most powerful spells probably they don't have access to at the moment. But and also there may be a case of like, if I decide that magic has schools in the way we know of it, there might be some schools that are possibly more accessible to humans for whatever reason, and maybe they'll have higher levels of the availability of higher level spells there than in other kinds of magics. And planar magics is barred from them in the sense that they barely know it exists, because the elves were so controlling of how that magic is used, even with their own people. So say while during the occupation, there would have been a portal that was open at all times for traveling back and forth between Mimini City and the Elven continent. But it was closed during the Exodus. And the humans never knew it was there. So they might find like the remains of it or something in the higher parts of the city, but they won't know what it's for. Yeah, it does make you curious about the Elven continent. I'm trying to touch very lightly on this lore because I don't want to get swept up in my curiosity about it, because that will happen at some point. All right, let's see what else we got here. Path crawls. Path crawls are useful for labyrinthine cities. The ancient city of Dismas is the main stage of play in my long-running Black Griffin campaign. That's what I'm in. And path crawls have been used to great effect. To demonstrate, I've overlaid the player's map with a hidden graph of the main throughways. Yeah. Each path represents a major route. Each node a significant landmark. Players can navigate with simple choices, just like a dungeon, left or right, across the bridge or along the river, or they should cut through back streets, increasing the chances of random encounters. Paths have different challenges. Gutter Street has regular patrols, which dubious adventurers might want to avoid. Fish Gate is a great way to sneak into the city, provided you pay the right bribes. The city becomes a rambling obstacle, adding memorable landmarks. The Bridge of Shutters is especially popular, giving the players a chance to recall routes, and a way of introducing important locations while retaining the glimpsed city. Okay, let's talk about that a bit. I was not aware that different streets had special encounter flavors. That was something I've been playing in this campaign for 3 years now. And I was not aware that that was a thing. I was aware that maybe because of the bailiff's tower here, let's do the circly thingy. Do you see the circly thingy when I do that? Does that actually come across? It looks like it does. That I was aware that this is like a barracks kind of, so you would run into patrols more often there. And then obviously this node is an area where you get a lot of almshouses and temples, and so every time we've gone through there we get harangued by someone preaching an awful lot. No, I understand that. You always have less time than you think you do. It's always the case. Always. And like I know things like this area of the city, or maybe it's more this area of the city has a lot of abandoned buildings. So like in the past when we needed to be a bit sneaky about our presence, I've always relied on there being empty buildings here. I think this gate into, is it this gate? I can't, let's see if I can, get closer in on here. There's a gate here, I think. No, Salt Gate, and maybe this is the other gate. Sorry, I'm only confused because this is presented differently than the one we use in the game. That, like, you know, there's gates in the chalk quarter that require you to have specific purposes because there are guards that will essentially prevent your entry if you don't look like the right kind of people, or if you can't pay their bribes, or you don't have a job to be doing there. I've only ever been through this gate once, and that was Recent City, and I was a little surprised by that. I assumed that we were going to come through the way we always had up here, through Old Dismas and those gates. You regret a wall. Not flavorful, just frustrating. Well, it definitely got frustrating when we had to be passing back and forth through it a lot. But it was also hugely flavorful in that way. I think you could probably combat that by giving us more like back ways in, like, you know, we had that hole in the wall that worked really cool, except we ran into the issue with that of my character having absolutely no acrobatic skill despite being a rogue. They're an inquisitive rogue. And I was just rolling poorly over and over and over again one night, and it got us all super stressed out, and I think you ended up like fudging a roll just to say, okay, they get up, it's okay. If there were more things like that, more possible back ways like that in and out of the chalk quarter that maybe appealed more to different styles of play, or to different like subclasses or whatever. You know, maybe you just had a group that has absolutely no dexterity skill, then having a hole in the wall 10 feet up is really not going to be any help to them. Yeah, maybe that is a thing to do, is to consider what's your threshold of hand waving on stuff. Yeah. Maybe there is a known trader who will smuggle people in and out of chalk quarter. That's a good sort of role-playing way to do it. That you pay them, say, less than you'd pay in bribes to the guards at the gate, and they'll transport you in and out, and maybe they have some kind of like running deal with the guards that makes it cheaper for them. I like it as flavor. I mean, I like boundaries in a game. I'm not one of those players who doesn't want to be limited and gets really pissed off at the GM for making me have to, for challenging me. Let's see, let's finish this off. Players gain a rough idea of how to get about, yet there is always a nagging uncertainty. Is this the best route? Do we remember the correct way? Where was that tavern again? Yeah. To me, that's the great thing about having lots of ways to do things in a city. Having all these possible entrances is, it takes time to get to know, like, what parts of the city are right for the thing that you want to do. You know, like knowing that I want to hide in Cemetery Hill, knowing that, if I run across the, Chancellery of Scraps, that I want to avoid the Bridge of Shakes. That, you know, if I've pissed off the Council of Thieves, I don't want to use the sewers. Or I think the hardest part about it is it's impossible to really tell people up front what all the options are in a way that you would experience a city. I'm only good at remembering it because I'm really into it, and I find it very curious, and I think I just jive really well with your the storytelling that you include in this city. So I'm always making like mental notes. Oh, you know, keep track of that because I might, you know, be interested in that at some time. But as I was saying, when you first enter a place, there's so much that you don't know that, does anyone ever really walk into London the first time knowing absolutely nothing about it? There has to be stories about things like, I know that there's, you know, a theater district, and I know that there's a couple of really big and interesting cathedrals, and, I know that the streets are a pain and I don't ever want to drive through it. And I don't know how easy that is to convey that sort of thing at the beginning of a game before a character. So a lot of times when coming into the city and on new missions, it does feel a bit like you're walking in blind to something you shouldn't be walking in blind to, or you wouldn't be walking in blindly to. But I'm not sure that can really be helped. You probably don't want to bog down play with constant street rambles, though. If the player has a good idea where they're going, I don't make them path crawl if they don't, or under time constraints, path crawl raises tensions. Yeah, we did have that one time when we came into the city and we were walking from Old Dismas Inn, and we were coming in under the guise of refugees, and so it made a lot of sense for us to be sort of stuck with the flow of traffic coming into the city. And Rick did some really excellent what do you call it? Just storytelling about what we were experiencing and whatnot, and what it was like. And it was really cool. Only I think in the end, we decided a little bit that maybe it was a bit too much, or something that I thought was kind of important that could have made it better was the assumption that the players are always moving. I think there was an element when we played it out that first time that that we might have been, you know, stopping to look at all of these things. And I think that frustrated us a little bit because we had pictured ourselves constantly moving and just sort of maybe rubbernecking them, the specific interesting things a little bit. which I think was just maybe a disconnect between, you know, DM and players as far as storytelling goes, which happens. That's totally normal. Oh, I've missed your little annotations there. You showing off a bit? Yeah, you you were, and we were really enjoying it. I remember that the first part of that session, we're like, wow, that was awesome. Keep doing that. Yeah. You got to find that balance, really. What are these annotations here? There are areas of improvement. I'm considering a more complicated, perhaps even bewildering network of streets. Nested path crawls so you can drill down into an important district. Rebooting the campaign so I may get the time to work on these. Yeah. Those sound like they could be interesting. I like the idea of nested path crawls. So like if, for instance, there is a specific path crawl through Cemetery Hill that's maybe this one, or maybe not, but that when you walk down it the first time, it's a lot like telling the story of that district of the town. That would be quite cool. And then maybe the next time you play it, it's mostly just a random encounter issue that maintains the flavor of that district. This is good stuff. I love it. Absolutely love it. Genoa. Is that as in like Genoa? Genoa. Oh yeah, of course. It's all on topic, and I'm unprepared, so I'm doing whatever the fuck I want tonight. Are you still with us, Ben? And I think Ben is gone. I've only got one viewer on my thing. That's all right. The other thing I wanted to do today is because I'm here on this page, the subreddit solo role playing. I have a supplement that I'd like to do some work on. But I want to get some opinions on what people want from this type of supplement. And so I picked solo role-playing and r/RPG as two places where I could ask this question. So I'm going to make a post. And we're going to call it... what do you want from a character generator? That's the thing I'm working on. I'm currently in brainstorming in the brainstorming stage of it. But I've never written anything like this before, and I've actually never used anything like it before either. I usually create all of my characters kind of either on the fly or I give them the personalities they need to have, if that makes sense. But I think having a random character generation is particularly useful for something like role-playing. But I know that other GMs use this kind of stuff as well in regular role-playing games, in group ones. So yeah, I'm not going to limit myself to one potential use of it. That would just be shooting myself in the foot. So what do you want from a character generator? As it says on the tin, I'm writing a character generator. Generator. And I'm curious how y'all what y'all like about the ones you use and what you wish they had that they don't. Here's a thought to start. I love when a generator uses abstract language that I need to interpret to pardon me. Sorry, I'm and just feeling really sluggish lately. Right. That I need to interpret to make useful in my game. It feels like I'm collaborating. And instead of cheating or stealing. Because yeah, I think when I look at those things, I look at them as kind of as a kind of stealing, offloading the creative work onto someone else, which doesn't sit right with me because I'm such a creative person. And that's not, I don't mean to put creativity on a pedestal. I just mean that's literally like, I couldn't do anything about it. I'm literally just constantly imagining and creating things in my head, and it drives me a little bit insane. Yeah. Okay. I think that's good for here. I'm gonna copy that for the other post. What kind of flair do I want? Discuss actual general solo. Tools. I think tools. Yep. Okay. Right. And hopefully we'll get some discussion going on that. What? What? Did I just lose? I've never had this problem before. You gotta be kidding me. Holy crap. Let's see if it works on my tablet for some reason. Yeah, all of Reddit is not working right now. That is really great timing. That is exceptional timing. I'm really shocked by that. Right. Okay. Yeah, I broke Reddit. All right, fine. We'll do some actual world building. God damn it. Where are we? This is where we're at. Okay. I didn't really I think I just didn't want to work today. Old Reddit still works. Ugh. I really don't like old Reddit. Okay, let's see. Boop. Well, okay, well, it does still work. It looks like it's posted. Did it actually post? I think it did. Yeah, it posted a minute ago. Okay, well, it's up. Now I'm making weird, annoying noises in the microphone. I'm sorry. I'm definitely feeling very bratty today. I had a very stressful weekend, so I think I'm allowed to be bratty today. Ooh, we've got who's this from? Oh, this is about... Yeah, that's the comment, I think. The auto moderator comment. Okay, so I want to post this in r/RPG, but I have to be a little bit more cautious with these mothers, because they are a sassy bunch, and quite possibly not a particularly entitled sassy bunch, but that's what they are, because that's what you're gonna get in general ttrpg groups, is some arrogant, entitled, sassy pants. So you gotta think around them. Let's see, what do you want in the grown-yards? Yep. In a character generator. I think I'm going to caveat that. I was thinking I was going to caveat that with saying system agnostic, because I know that if I don't, people are going to ask me what game it's for. But if I say system agnostic, then I'm going to get a bunch of people who are shouting at me that there's no such thing as system agnostic. So which thing do I want to get shouted about? I think I'd rather get shouted at for using the phrase system agnostic than for then a bunch of people asking me what game I'm talking about, because then at least they're not sitting around waiting for me to tell them. And at least some people will just start talking about it. And this isn't a problem at the solo role-playing subreddit, because they're used to this kind of stuff. When you say character generator, they're going to assume it's not for a specific role-playing game, not for a specific system. And do I want to put in a comment about, yes, I know that some people are going to get their panties in a bunch over the phrase system agnostic. Can we avoid discourse on that subject? Is that... non-player compendium. I'll look at that in a second. Honestly, I think it's a no-win situation. I'm not going to say anything. I might say something in the comments if people get all twisted up about it. To be used for any system. Yeah, okay. All right, I'm just gonna... Oh, I need to get post flare. Ooh, I've already got a post on solo role playing. Okay. Basic questions. Nudity guard, game master, humber, house rules, resources, tools. I think we're gonna use this one again. Yep. Okay. Apply. Send replies to my inbox. Okay. Submit. Ta-da! Okay, let's see if we can go back to new Reddit again. Bastard. Ah! Makes me so grumpy. This has mixed results. Oh, this is Rick. Sorry, I knew I recognized that name. It throws me off because it's so unlike any of the other names that you use, but it's also a phrase that you have used, so okay, let's have a look at it. Non-player compendium. From the successfully non-player cards Kickstarter comes the first installment of the NPC series, the non-player compendium, a handbook. Typo. A handbook containing everything you need to create a unique and engaging character with little to no prep. Inside, the book is arranged into 8 chapters, each with their own art and role lists. You've just given me an interesting idea. Oh my. What if you used a tarot deck to generate characters? And you use the actual meanings of the tarot cards to do it with. I love any game inspiration that has to do with tarot cards. Like, there are solo games that are done out of tarot cards. I just think it's super, super cool. I think it's so especially if it's done for fantasy, which I can't actually think of a time when it's not done with fantasy in mind. Okay. Oh, now I have to go to my thing that I can't show you, and boop. Where is RPG design ideas? NPC generator. How to use. I was just thinking of dice, so that's my. All right, I'll put this over here because I'm not a jerk who's gonna work on something on the side where you can't see it. And now I can't see chat. There we go. Okay. So this is me just brainstorming categories of features. This is also using my particular format for we call them stat blocks. They're not really stat blocks exactly. It's more of a role play. What would you call it? A role play framework. So like the first part of the framework is threat reaction. I've been just using fight or flight, which is the two sort of threat reaction options that we as Western culture sort of know of off the top of our heads. But there is some science out there in the world of psychology that introduces 2 more, fawn and freeze. And then we've got personality traits. I'm just coming up with word lists at this point. A personality trait is basically just 3 words or really short phrases that are very strong, and they lead how the character is role played. I would like to get a little bit more abstract, a little bit more flavorful with this stuff that I am right now, but at the moment I'm just brainstorming. Then we've got preconceptions. Just a couple of ideas about how this character thinks the world works. Then we've got wants and needs, a couple of things, maybe like 1 or 2 more things that this player needs to have happen. So we're talking, this is in the area of quest hooks. This is in the area of how the characters can engage with them particularly. So if we know that this character is worried about how much money they have for food right now, then there might be an opportunity for the characters to gain favor with that NPC, or get something from that NPC in return for maybe going and hunting for them for a day and bringing home some, a deer or some foraged food or whatever. Then we've got what the characters know, what the character knows. So 5 true or false facts. And this is, I think, where this is particularly different from like what you might get in a D&D book, where sometimes what a character thinks they know is not actually true, but it can really strongly affect how they interact with the world. And then evokes. This is something new that I was thinking of adding to my little roleplay framework. 1 or 2 feelings the character evokes from the players. I think this is an opportunity for some interesting language to be used in the tool. I think this is also appeals to a way that I know some GMs really like to play their games, where they're more concerned with expressing a feeling about what's going on rather than playing a character truthfully. I'm sorry, I might struggle to find words that express my understanding that that this is all perfectly legitimate thing for a way for people to play their game, because it's just very much not how I play my game, and not how I like a game to be played either. So I'm really bad at this is like I don't know if anybody else, I'm sure some people have this problem, and it's not a lot of people, but I'm really bad at complimenting people when I don't think like 90% good about them. If my good feelings about a person are like really mitigated, I really struggle to find a pure and true nice thing to say about them. And it's not because I don't think there's anything nice to say about them. It's just my brain, the part of my brain that's thinking about the other stuff. I can't turn it off. And I feel really bad about it. I've had friends who would joke with me about my backhanded compliments. And I just you play the game how you want to play the game, and any way you want to play the game is 100% legitimate, and don't let me or anyone else tell you you're doing it wrong. Just full stop. Okay? We're going to leave it there. I just understand that I am in the minority of how I like to play my games. And so I'm putting this evokes bit in here because I want to reach the majority group of people, really. Because I'm a business person or something like that. Right. And how to choose an ancestry. So, yeah, that it needs a little bit of translation there for potential different systems. Appearance, again, is not a thing that I'm concerned with in playing my role-playing games, but I know that a lot of people are. So I want to create a little how-to guide about how you can get that in here, how you can apply that to this generator. And then also when you have specific needs for a character, and you still want to use the generator, how to start with the generator, using those specific needs. So yeah, it's both a guide and a thing. And I've looked at a couple generators, and like the one that I've heard used, I've heard about most often being used, is one that's basically just a chart using dice. But I think tarot cards. each no, the deck is reshuffled for each category. Drawn cards say specific things. And I don't know if this is gonna say what I needed to say when I look at it again later, but I think I know what I mean. Okay. That might also help me get more abstract. That is a problem I have. I have to either start a thing really abstract and really artistic, or I start it really logical and structurally, scientifically, and I have a hard time breaching that middle point, that intersection between the two. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course I can. How's that? Good. Okay. Yep. Okay. This was, I think this was also my inspiration for wanting to do the dice mechanics stream, because I was wondering about how that feels to use different dice mechanics for something like a NPC generator. Because I'd like it to be fun to use as well. I'd like it not to be just a neutral tool. I would like it to be enjoyable. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna put that away. And oh, hang on. Yeah, no, that's right. I will get notifications if I get responses. Okie doke. All right, let's actually do a little work, hey? We were trying to figure out what is the calendar like, weren't we? Something weird, something D&D-esque. Like, do we want to like intentionally break rules, like with a 10-day kind of thing? Random names for all of the months and days of the week. We can do it by seasons or astronomy. The problem with that idea is that agriculture traditionally, certainly elven agriculture, is not dictated by the seasons anymore. Most humans are not even aware of the natural agricultural cycles. Well, I mean, I suppose they're aware now, aren't they? Let's write this out. Aware now, but only for the last 47 years. Ooh, I've got a comment. Ooh, this looks like it's going to be an interesting comment. Hang on. Let's go look at it. Let's avoid work some more. Woo! Oh, maybe it's... Don't have a calendar yet? Well, obviously they have a calendar, though, because the elves would have a calendar. I mean... Unless for some reason the elves kept the calendar from them. Why would they do that, though? I mean, I'm intrigued. Why would you think they would keep the humans from knowing about time? Because they're dicks. I mean, yes, they are, but that's not a good reason. That's not a good enough reason, Rick. All right, let's read this comment. What I would like is probably a lot more complex than you have in mind, but here goes. I'd like to see a group of characters generator. That is a generator that creates a group of a specific size, user's choice, of people and the relationships with every other member, good, bad, or indifferent, and why, how long they have known each other, and who they know in the group that others in the group don't know. In that vein, specifying how tight-knit the group is from family, where everyone, oh, interesting, what their goals are, secrets they share with some others, or keep to themselves. Oh, that's really intriguing. Keep them confused and ignorant. I mean, they definitely have put some effort into that, haven't they? I would feel like, however, that they would need them to have an understanding of time and the passage of time in order to be of the most benefit, of the most use to the elves. Wouldn't they? Yeah, it's super interesting. I think I'm gonna promote these on some of my Discords later. Oh, I've had somebody downvote my post. I don't understand why people downvote posts like this. They just don't. What's particularly wrong about them? I don't know. Whatever. Oh, I need to upvote this guy. Background radiation. I don't like the way that sounds. Although I do sometimes wonder when I haven't searched beforehand to see how much a thing is being talked about, if I'm posting things that people talk about a lot. But it's a step that I always forget to do. And should probably do more often, especially when I'm posting my stuff that I post with promotional intentions. The sneaky backdoor of getting promotions into some RPGs is to post a discussion that leads into the thing you're trying to promote. I mean, it's a good way of doing it and still engaging with the community. And on the subreddit that I moderate, I insist that that's the way that people use to promote things if they're going to do it. But a lot of people don't get it as a means, and they just sort of post their shit anyway just to get deleted. Okay. Yeah. Maybe that's a trick. Maybe that is a trick. Okay. So this might be a point. Unsophisticated knowledge of agricultural cycles. But that might not actually be a calendar note. That might just be a general culture note. Okay. Myth-based year cycles. I think this is what I'm leaning towards. That actually the passage of time in elven society is marked by myth-based cycles, or legend-based cycles. That all of this comes from the elves, which in turn got it from the dragons, because the dragons gave the elves astronomy. Oh, but that's so talking constellations, but maybe we could do year cycles. Like there's a draconian myth about how everything is repeated. That would very much fit into my setting. Draconian myth states that everything repeats on a... What is the frequency of the repetition? What is the frequency of the repetition? Because we're talking about draconian lifespans. If it repeats too frequently, then I don't know, that doesn't make sense for the draconian frame of mind, because in the draconian frame of mind, something that repeats too frequently would be just noise. It would be more always than repeated, wouldn't it? Everything repeats on a... Just do... There we go. Random number of years greater than 1,000. On a 1,543 year cycle. Is that a prime number? Is 1,543 a prime number? Because I'm actually thinking I don't want it to be a prime number. Is this number prime? Yep. Is... I've forgotten. Yeah, of course it's a prime number. I have forgotten how to decide whether or not something is divisible by a number. There's like a whole set of rules about how to figure out whether or not you can something is divisible by the numbers 1 through 9. Obviously, everything is divisible by 1. 2 through 9. And I've forgotten what all those rules are. Well, you have to work it backwards, don't you, to find out whether or not something is prime. You just have to be able to look at it, and you have that set of rules that I was talking about where you can tell just by looking at a number whether or not it's divisible by, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. And if it's not divisible by any of those, then chances are really high for it being a prime number, and then you might just go look at a chart. I don't think there's any way to just peg whether or not something is prime without looking at a list. So let's see. The previous number is 1,531. The next is 1,549. With other odd numbers, obviously, because a prime number is never even. You did a maths degree? I didn't notice that you just said you did a maths degree. Wow, okay. I nearly did a maths degree. But it just way more interesting and interested in other things. Maths is more of an obsession with me than it is something I actually like. It's like a drug, kind of. I get a little bit fixated on maths when I get into it. And it's an odd experience. I was in the math team my final year at school, and it was all I could think about, like, all year. It was actually kind of bad. I was like counting the minutes between each club session that we had, where I could just go through worksheets on maths that I'd never done before. Let's see. This is a good number around this. I suppose I should just make it, if I wanted it to be divisible by a lot of things. What? Okay. See, these two numbers are only divisible twice. And, okay. So what I got? 1531, 1533. This probably has more divisible on it. 1535 would have more divisibles. It definitely would, because it's multiple 5. And that's the other. So prime numbers can basically only ever end in 1, 3, or 7, I think. Because if it's an even number, it's never a prime number. Oh, I guess they can end in 9. It might be less often that they end in 9, because 9 is often, anything ending in 9 is often divisible by 3. Huh. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go on weird math stuff, and I don't need to go on weird math stuff. I'm trying to look at these other numbers, and obviously, if they're only divisible by 2 other prime numbers, then that's not really going to help me, is it? Maybe it is. That's a thought. Okay. So what I was thinking, the reason I'm looking at whether or not something is divisible is the fact that I wanted to break it down. So in the Draconian mythology, every 1,500 and whatever years is like an era. And then it can be broken further down into kind of almost like the stages in a story. And then each of those breakdowns have a name. And then you can break it down even further, maybe. So like if, for instance, I pick the number 1,541, which is only factored into other prime numbers, 2 prime numbers, then we've got these 2 potential breakdowns, so either 23 years or 67 years. So if we only break this down 23 times, then it's chunks of 67 years that have a name. And then it's the year within. So then I would need to have 67 names for each year. And then 12 names for months. But if I did it the other way around and it broke down into 67 periods, I'd still have to have 67 names for things, wouldn't I? Because I want to avoid using really large having to have come up with really large lists of names. Yeah, no, it's not. Okay. I need to look at other numbers. Let's look at this list. Oh, what an exciting list. Let's look here. Cousin primes. So that must just be a name that they use for when they're really close. Twin primes are the two odd numbers next to each other. Okay. I'm learning more about maths than I really wanted to know right now. Not really. I'm gonna have to do this on my own, I think. Instead of boring all y'all with me looking at numbers to find the right. Oh, here we go. Yep, somebody's already brought it up. How do you mean system agnostic? Why don't you just use this? Oh, God. Thinking more about applying it in a novel. Ooh. But in a game, you could easily put together a group of NPCs that would interact a little more realistic with each other, as well as the players. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, who doesn't love the NPC player adventure group parallel? That sounds like fun. Okay. All right. I'm not gonna worry too much about the numbers on stream because it's boring as heck and it's already making me want to fall asleep. So we've got this longer cycle than each major cycle breaks down into a pattern of smaller groups of years. Like 7 narrative phases. Yep. And each year. Oh, no, I'm just gonna do, it probably should be in the double digits. Each year within a phase has a name the way that months do. Yeah. And so months per year is lunar solar then, so it'd be almost exactly like ours, but whatever, maybe I'll make it different because the lunar solar cycles on our whatever planet we're on is different than ours, which would be fine. And then days, then we're doing weeks and days. Now, what I'm curious about is what is the reasoning for a week being 7 days long? Let's find this out. Why is a week 7 days long? The Babylonians, let's look at Discover magazine. The Babylonians, who lived in modern-day Iraq, were astute observers and interpreters of the heavens, and it is largely thanks to them that our weeks are 7 days long. The reason they adopted the number 7 was that they observed 7 celestial bodies: the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So that number held a particular significance to them. Other civilizations chose other numbers. Egyptians' weeks were 10 days long. Romans were 8. Yep. Okay. So the Babylonians just divided their lunar months into 7-day weeks, with the final day of the week holding particular significant importance. Sure. I wonder if that's where we get the whole God made the earth in 7 days thing, because of the timing of the writing of those books. Of Genesis, perhaps being heavily influenced by the Babylonians. Because we've also got, the Babylonian, the biblical Babylonian story is in Genesis. The 28-day month or complete cycle of the moon is a bit too large a period of time to manage effects, so the Babylonians divided their months into 4 equal parts of 7s. Oh, okay. Although 7 is not well suited to coincide with the solar year, so it did create a few inconsistencies, but I think we largely just ignore that mathematical inconsistency in our current calendar, don't we? Yeah, the Romans, everyone just sort of fell along, didn't they? I bet you it's largely because of Christianity and the Christian myth of Genesis adopting the 7-day week being the reason for why we have a 7-day week. Although I don't think an article like this is gonna go into that. Well, that's quite interesting. Oh my goodness, I need to go back to bed already. I haven't been awake that long. So essentially what this is telling me is I could pick just about anything. So lunar month equals, let's give it a number that's easily factored. Let's say 32 days. And so a week is month divided by 32 is divisible by 442. Well, that's not fun. Well, let's try a different one. 36. What's the factorial for 36? 36 is 4. Four, 4, 3. Also not fun. Numbers are significant, guys. I'm sorry. I know this is like super boring for some people, but numbers are significant in the way that the world works and how they're divided up and whatnot. So bear with me. What's another good number that I want? I want something that's divisible by a number sort of somewhere between 6 and 9. Okay, let's look at our times table. What do we got? And 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36. Oh yeah, duh. 36, 42, 48, 54, 60, 66, 72. So, I like 54. Maybe we'll say 54 days. And a week is a month divided by 6 and 9. 6. Week is a month divided by 6. So 6 equals 9 days. Oops. Okay. So a lunar month is 54 days. A week is 9 days. And yeah. And then we've got all of these mythological cycles up here as well. Yeah, I'm not great. Like, I don't have instant recall of my times tables. But I'm fairly good with maths inside my head. I was a part of that. I don't even know if they still have to do this or not in schools. But when I was in elementary school, I remember 4th and 5th grade was basically heavily marked by giant sheets of times of multiplication problems. And you were timed, like the teacher actually had a stopwatch while you were going through the sheets, and the sheet had exactly 100 problems, and then you kept records of how quickly you had gotten through them. Or if you didn't finish, like how many problems you managed to get through. And then, and then all of that was, you also kept a record of like how accurate you were with everything as well. So you'd finish them, you'd get timed. And then, as soon as everyone was finished, then you'd pass the worksheet over, and then we'd go through marking them, and then you'd take them back, and you'd had like a little journal where you kept record of how good you were doing, how you were improving. And I just remember like all of 4th grade was all of that. That was basically all of maths in 4th grade. Year 5 for you Brits. But I was very much the kind of kid, like, I hated repetition. I flunked out of 6th grade math, believe it or not, year 7, because for us, that's our switch from, similar to elementary or similar from the switch from primary to secondary school. That's basically what ours is going from elementary school to middle school. I was started off in high maths, like the smart kids maths. But the problem was that smart kids maths was essentially doing a bajillion math problems over and over and over again every night. We literally had somewhere between 100 and 200 math problems to complete for homework every single night of the week. And the way my brain works, like once I get a concept of like how something works, it is stuck in my head. It won't come out. And doing all of that busy work is like just literally drilling a hole in my head. And I very quickly gave up on that. And then because I wasn't doing the homework, I got flunked out and got put into the regular maths class, which I did fine with because there wasn't nearly as much homework. I was just bored. I suppose bored is better than flunking, right? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to do some work on that on my own. What time are we at? Oh, it's 10 o'clock now. Okay. Well, we had some fun today. We did some actual work, so we're good there. Yeah, I think I'm going to end. Yeah, we're good. Okie doke. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yay, we're ending. Oh, thanks, Rick. Much appreciated. Yeah, we had a good time. How do you like my light? I decided to try it again because I like the way it separates me from the background. I also changed the colors so it more matches my I think this is the closest I can get with a selection of RGB colors, so that it matches my brand color, my Tempest coral. But yeah, no, stuff is good. I'm doing all right. Yeah. As long as Flickering Torch doesn't think that I'm stealing his RBG theme, then we're all good. Yeah. All right. I'm just gonna end here. Everybody have a good night. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourself. Bye-bye.